world that we live in the workforce, we have a list of things that we have to do every day. Some are obligatory, some are voluntary, some are things that we think are really important. And they become transactions, a list of transactions. And sometimes in the process of activating those transactions, we forget what is our intention. And that intention is to build relationships. There's no question in my mind that nursing leaders today are so devoted and so passionate about their team. But what is missing is that linkage that they're feeling, that the staff is feeling, that this is beyond a transaction, that this is beyond a busy day, but this is really all about building a relationship so that you could know me a little bit more. What makes me different and what makes me part of the whole. So that's really what I think is meant by authenticity. Could we build that sense of authenticity so that the staff doesn't feel that this is not an obligatory transaction, that you're not doing this just because, but you're doing it because you're thinking about me and you're mindful of me, what I am, what I need, and what will make me better in the workplace. So let me speak about surveys. Once you have them inside your organization, we tend to make them just be part of the whole. And we just do the same thing over and over again. We do surveys. I think surveys are important, but they're snapshots of the organization at a certain point in time. Level of specificity that speaks to the stewardship that you have in that relationship is not usually well manifested in a survey, and yet it is helpful. Beyond that, beyond the sign-on bonus, beyond the benefits that you give them, the question becomes, do they feel that you are a true steward of how they feel? Are you a true steward of what they're about? And could you get them to fulfillment? And what do I mean by fulfillment? Fulfillment is a function of a number of things. Number one, do we have a global intervention or pervasive intervention for everyone? That may be universal, but equally important. Number two, do we have a personalized way of touching them? And number three, that personalized thing and that global pervasive intervention, is it one that could be appreciated by everyone? Is it something that meet their needs one way or the other? So I really think that those three are so important to get them to fulfillment. Global, individual, and then again, the last one is, can we personalize it enough that it would touch something special with each and every one of the staff? The needs that we had when I was practicing many, many years ago as a critical care nurse is not different than it is today. Here's the difference. Before, we don't talk about it. We just do, right? We just do what we're supposed to do. Today, we have multiple generations in the workforce, and their needs are so very different. And they're constantly being told, you've got to focus on work-life blending. Some people will say work-life balance. There's no such thing. But they're constantly encouraged to do work-life blending. But we're not giving them solutions as to how. Number two, we're not giving them the time to be able to engage that. But think about this. There's not a whole lot of mentors available today. Think about the age of nurses today. The average age is 51. It used to be 47, right? So we have an aging workforce. What they need is the ability for us to come to them, not with what is your staffing needs, although that's top of mind. What are your needs in terms of taking off or PTO? But we need to say, what else can make this life a lot more manageable to you, for you, in a holistic way? But when we ask them the question, we better do something about it. We are very good in asking people for solutions, and we say, okay, great, and then we go on to the next business at hand. So the ability to hear, to listen, to execute, or to plan first, plan something for intervention, and then execute is very important. The ability to be able to say to the people, tell me about you, tell me what drives you. What drives a millennial is going to be different from what drives, a Gen X and what drives a baby boomer, right? And so therefore, we need to come up with a multi-generational plan that will help gather information, define a plan, and then help with the execution. In all this, I can tell you the one thing that was missing, that has been missing all along, is the ability to have tools that stratify, tools that segregate information, and tools that are instructive. Because if the nurse managers and the CNOs will have the responsibility of trying to decipher all this, there's just not enough time during the day. There's just really not enough time during the day. So the availability of tools, once you've ascertained what the needs are, and the ability to help them execute. Sometimes we analyze so much, we're paralyzed by our own analysis, and it's so overwhelming. We just can't do anything about it. And so we need to give them the tools. And I talk about tools all the time, because without the tools, they can't execute. You can't ask them to build a house without the instruments to do so. Think about this. The latest statistic is that, again, this is from the American Nurses Association, they're saying that we will be short 1.1 million nurses in the next 5 to 7 years. Compound that we expect that in the next 10 to 15 years, another million nurses are expected to retire. So the shortage is not going to go away. In fact, it's going to be even more exacerbated. And so in that shortage, our first solution is start bringing people from everywhere, do this, do that, just plug them in. That plugging and batching, though sometimes is critical and the only thing we can do, is not going to get us to a sustainable solution. People are looking for resiliency. People are looking for relationships. They're looking for authenticity. And so we must find a way that is really authentic in our style, that they could predict that that is so much Norma in her style of leadership. This is not just an organizational platform. And so we need to be very careful that we're not short-sighted with the fact that nurses need care right now that more than ever. The moral injury is real. They're traumatized, they're afraid. There's a lot of people thinking of retirement. So it may be that we have to be realistic about what's the true capacity, optimized, given our staff. And in the meantime, what do we do with the staff? How do we help the staff? How do we ask the staff to help us come up with a solution? Sometimes we think that we always know best. The staff knows best also. And the confluence of their thoughtful solution and what they think and that what we're thinking could be the best combination ever to get us to a sustainable future. It is not just about today. It can't just be about tomorrow, but it's got to be about the sustainable many tomorrows from now. Having learned and studied Laudio and what it does, and looking at the outcomes and the evidence base behind it, I have to tell you, this is a tool that we need. I can't imagine going about the business that we have today with a span of control, with all the emotional trauma that we're going through, and not having this kind of tool. It's been said in many studies that the reason why people leave is because they couldn't work with their manager, right? It's because of their direct management. Well, that's easier said than done. And there you've got a manager whose span of control is overwhelming. And yet here we are saying, oh, you're not doing well. And after the survey, we're going to do a focus group and kind of decipher why people don't like working with you and so forth and so on. We're not going to have enough managers. Remember, many of those managers were promoted because they were excellent clinicians. It's not like they were trained to be managers. Yeah. And while we're doing the best we can to train them, the expectations of them have gone up so high, so exponentially, that they can't keep up. They can't keep up. And so I really can't say this enough. We've got a tool that gives us a holistic approach in terms of data, but it gives us a tool that feeds our holistic approach towards intervention for our staff, which then eventually can also help our managers in the long run. Imagine how what a manager feels when they go home and they say, I think I forgot this, or I'm supposed to go to this meeting, and then I got to do this, but I also have to do an evaluation, but I also have to try to make my staff feel good. And then the staff on the other end is saying, I worked hard today. I almost got infected today and nobody even noticed. So this bilateral emotion is so crippling that if we have a solution that is worth exploring, it would be awful if we did not give it a try.